true?
I mean, sort of. Like I've heard people say. So let me give you an example of how they can both be true, where it gets like really messy, right? So I've heard people say like, I heard this on TikTok actually. This girl was like, "No, humans could have evolved, and God just simply um, spoke to or breathed the souls into the first, like Adam and Eve weren't the only people alive at the time. God just spoke to them or breathed life into them, gave them souls or something like that. And they were just the first people to be given that gift or know that God exists or something like that. And then it's like, okay, but like what are we talking about at this point? It's very strange. And then there are other people that take the position that like, well, what the Bible says, it's really just describing something different. There's supposed to be this idea of like Genesis 1 is what they call a temple inauguration. And so it's just like a metaphor kind of for some sort of like, I don't know, weird ritualistic thing. But they at the same time believe there actually was a garden, that there actually was a fall, that sin actually did enter the world. It's just it's very weird. Like the people like the Hovens and Ken Ham and whatever else that say like, well, no, the Bible says there was no death before sin, so you can't have billions of years because there would be creatures that lived and died, and that can't work. And the other people try to argue against that, like, no, because it's only talking about humans. That's how it worked. But then it's like, well, wait. So do you actually think that Adam and Eve were the first? It doesn't really work well together. Now, you can just, if you just believe that the whole Adam and Eve story is just like completely made up, it's just an allegory, it's meant to just teach a lesson or whatever, then fine. Like, there's no reason. Like, if I were going to debate like a Bible thumper that says the Bible's the, like, evolution can't be true because the Bible must be true or whatever, I would just say, so you believe in a God that couldn't have created the universe, and then let evolution unfold? I mean, you're limiting your God when you do that. So that sound, I mean, there's no reason a God can't exist and evolution be true. Can evolution be true and the Bible be true? I guess it depends what you mean. I feel like you kind of have to, um,
Like choose
what do I
one
want to say?
almost?
You have to whittle down the significance of the Bible so much that it loses so much of its like literal interpretation. And many Christians are fine with doing that. But like the problem is, okay, but Jesus only metaphorically rose from the dead? No, he literally rose from the dead. Oh, okay. So Adam and Eve, like, is that just a story? Or I thought if they didn't sin, then there'd be no reason for Jesus to have ever even existed and been sacrificed or whatever. So then it's like, oh well, yeah, they did. And so I don't know what shape the peg or the hole is, and I don't know how to, therefore, even if they can fit, because it just changes constantly. I guess we
What
do
what
know what shape the evolution hole is. I'll take that back.
what changes constantly? You're saying science or evolution? Like what you said it changes
No,
constantly.
I mean like the religious interpretation. How do we make religion? How do we make the Bible and evolution work? That's done by just constantly shape shifting, I feel like. And so like where's the objectivity? Like if you could just make it work, then okay, but now it's just kind of like why are we doing this?
It's so interesting you mentioned Kent Hovind because I literally had a friend interview him on his podcast yesterday.
Oh,
And someone in the
gross.
comments said Kent Bovine. No, it's not Kent Bovine. It's
Bovine.
Hovind. Had you ever heard of this guy named Robert Jastrow, Jastrow?
It doesn't ring a bell.
He's this like kind of like a world-renowned astrophysicist, very established in his career, and he wrote a book called I think it's called God and the Astronomers, I believe. And he basically outlines in this book there was this radioactive static that was discovered, which they at first couldn't figure out quite what it was, and then they traced it back essentially to the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
And
that's the cosmic microwave background radiation.
yeah, and it all kind of like tied into the Big Bang Theory being this sort of singularity point in time where creation began. And I think you said in one of you were chatting with someone and you said something about the universe is ever expansive. And it seems as if everything in our universe that is growing or expansive has a creation point, of some kind. Like, anything we can observe, with our senses, So I don't know. It's just kind of fascinating because Robert Jastrow is he's on like one side of the equation, like Kent Hovind is on the other side of the equation, but they both sort of like marry these ideas together in some way. Um, but it is interesting, I think that, there has to be like, to me, it just makes sense that there has to be some point of creation. Like, and that point of creation has to have some sort of engineering involved with it, some sort of architecture, some sort of like creative input, not just, sort of this like random soup of elements and atoms and you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, there just seems to be like it just seems too like simple almost or like I don't know, like random for it to just be like not designed, right?
Um, I, I hear what you're saying, and like that sounds logical in our minds, but it like why assert that the universe even is created in the first place? I mean, I don't think we have any evidence of that. This element of time comes into the universe at a certain point, but does that mean that the universe was created? I mean, and we don't have any evidence of anything ever being created. I don't really think. Just things transform and change is all. Um, but like if you're gonna say that, well, our universe exists, therefore there must be a cause behind it. Well, eventually we just that that thing exists, cause. That just arbitrarily ends somewhere. And quite a lot of people just end it with there's God. There isn't a super God that created the universe. It's just God, right? Um, and I've never heard anybody give me a reason why it can't just stop with the universe. It exists, but it's uncreated or uncaused.
I think that's probably because in our own experience objectively, everything, in our world we can understand or identify creation. So whether it's replication of our own species, replication of another species, uh, literally anything, like we see sort of the evolution and progress and growth of it. So I think it's just sort of like this, I don't know, sixth sense, if you will, that we have we see how things are created. Like we can make a baby, we can plant a tree, and then we can see that tree grow and we see that baby grow. So we're like, oh, I created that, or oh, I facilitated in that creation. So there's like this inception point. I think Einstein called it a singularity point in time or something like that. And it like bothered him his entire life, actually, which is interesting that like he kind of like understood it, but he didn't fully understand it. Um, so it was like something that was like cumbersome for him. But yeah, what do you think about the element of oxygen in relation to, I guess, us living on this planet and like creation? Like oxygen, I find to be the most fascinating element because it's the number one thing we need to survive. I mean, you die faster than anything without oxygen. You could go, without food, water, sleep, whatever.
Oh, right.
Uh, but oxygen is this like sort of invisible gas, right? That we utilize it. We have this sort of exchange with it. Um,
You
unlike
wash
everything.
it, you cut it, you swim with it.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's always there. It's infinite. It's giving us life. We can't physically see it. We can't touch it. We can't really identify it like we can anything else. Yeah, we can like measure it with scientific instruments, which is great, like pressure and whatnot. But uh,
Are you saying like we need oxygen? How come there's so much of it that can't be a coincidence?
I'm saying, well, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of oxygen, and we live in an ecosystem that is constantly creating more oxygen, right? Like trees,
Yeah.
plants. like we live in this like really perfectly designed ecosystem. I mean, even like if gravity was higher or lower, the universe would literally, the Earth would like literally tear apart or, essentially self implode if gravity was just slightly higher or lower. So that's kind of
Right.
strange. But when it comes to oxygen in particular, like it's the number one thing we need for survival. We can't see it. We just have to like we just know that it's there. Like we have to almost like believe in it. It's gonna
Well,
be
you
there.
can I think Joseph Priestley, I think, but no, it wasn't him, or maybe it was him who isolated oxygen for the first time. I don't remember, but no, I don't think it's really a coincidence at all. Life adapts to the conditions that it's given, and the oxygenation
Well,
of
what do
Earth
you mean that it's
actually ushered
given?
in the
What do you mean
worst
that's given?
extinction ever. This extinction, the Permian ain't shit compared to this extinction event because it most life was microbial, yeah, but it wiped out pretty much almost all of life. And some life forms that figured out how to use oxygen, um, or how to manage with that excess oxygen because it's toxic, or it was back then, uh, made it through. So um, I don't really find that to be any kind of like it's not super special. I mean, there could be more oxygen, and that would be arguably more beneficial for us. Um, so it's not like and like the environment being perfect for us. I mean, the environment sucks. It's got rabies in it and stuff like that. So
That's a you have to go. I mean, yeah, it's a very small percentage of the population who have rabies, but yeah, I hear you.
yeah, well, I mean that's just one problem among many. I mean, infant mortality rates for most of human history were like 40% ish. The environment just kind of sucks in so many
Yeah,
ways.
but we learned how to wash our hands and do basic things that, made it better.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't if I were creating something, I wouldn't be like I would make it so you don't have to do that.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like if I were going to um like
Sanitizing?
if I were going to build a house, I wouldn't build a house where the people that live in it have to go to extraordinary lengths not to get infected by like the nails wouldn't stick out, so you wouldn't get tetanus, right? Like things like that. And I find the environment to be like it's not perfect at all. It's fucking horrible in so many ways, and so I don't view it as the product of a omnibenevolent thingamajig.
Yeah, it's probably just a difference in perspective. I think the environment, I mean, well, first of all, we don't even know the extensiveness of the environment. We've studied like 3% of the plants in the Amazon rainforest. So uh, we really don't know what the environment entails in that regard. And I mean,
Well, I think we have the big picture.
3% of the Amazon rainforest, that's not really the big picture. That's a small picture. And look at
Yeah,
the
but
depths of
those
the sea. We
yeah,
haven't
but
even
those
studied
plants
a fraction of the depths of the sea.
yeah, but that
What
doesn't
is
influence
the same thing?
that doesn't influence human existence.
What do you mean?
Not really.
Those like the botanical aspects of like something in the Amazon?
Yeah, like there could be a pharmaceutical breakthrough, but I'm talking like by the big picture, I mean like how the environment fundamentally works. Like you don't need to know hardly any of very many of the species at all to understand how the environment works in the big picture sense. That's really all
You're,
I'm saying.
you're saying because like one species would character or have similar traits to another, for example, or something along those lines.
No, I'm just like talking about like studying the environment writ large, like in general, how it works. Understanding some of those species interactions that is beneficial, that does help, but just like the idea of how surviving, existing, natural resources, competition, whatever, how that works in the environment, you don't really need to know very many species to understand that. That's really all I'm saying.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, but yeah, but then your understanding is limited, obviously, because we're that's what the point of science is to it's a never-ending pursuit of
I I
discovery.
I I know, but like I said, that we have the big picture thing. So it's like picture like you build something, and like everybody can tell exactly what it is. Now, maybe you need to um maybe you need to like sand it, like it's made out of wood or whatever. So it's really rough, but you know exactly what it is and how it functions. You're saying like, well, yeah, but I still have like 100 hours of sanding to do before it's like really actually done. That isn't actually adding any information that's helping us understand what the thing is. And it's like a resolution problem. I'm telling you that this fine resolution isn't changing the big picture necessarily. Now there are things in that that do. I'm not saying it's unimportant or whatever. Just we're kind of going in circles with this. So
Yeah, I guess I sort of understand what you're saying, but I also, when you say it doesn't change the big picture, I mean, it's like, well, then what's the point of life at that point? I mean, you're if we have an understanding, or if it's, I don't know, like the process of discovery and research and all of these things is to, continue that path of discovery. I think that's an awesome process.
yeah, so do I.
So, but yeah, I mean, back to the oxygen. You mentioned, I forget, you mentioned someone, you were saying that they like something
Everything
with like
around us
oxygen
is
and
in
the
perfect.
soul and whatnot. So my understanding, and this is kind of like a multicultural perspective. This isn't like one thought philosophy from one geographic region in the world. Many cultures in the world equate breath or oxygen with spirit. They're synonymous, one and the same. You could go to ancient China, ancient Greece, uh, many cultures, even like Hawaii. I mean, like
Yeah,
small.
Galen, pretty sure it's Galen. He thought that spirit entered your body as you breathe. Like spirit was something you accumulate, whereas like Aristotle thought spirit was something you just have.
Yeah, it could be both.
Yeah. But I mean, they were trying to look for what is the vital essence, the force that makes life possible. And so they jumped on explanations like because they're like, well, why do we breathe? I mean, that was completely mysterious until the 1800s. Like everybody knew you died if you didn't, but why? Because we need oxygen. But then we didn't know why we need oxygen until the 1900s because it's part of the Krebs cycle. So
Right.
that's pretty weird to think about that we didn't know why we breathe air until like the 1930s. But we didn't.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's just interesting how spirit and oxygen are so interconnected, from different cultures.
Well,
And
I
then,
mean, I think oxygen is the real answer to what people thought whatever the spirit thing is supposed to be.
well, yeah, no, I mean, but them being synonymous. In other words, like you're like, because think about oxygen, like just, it's a non-physical sort of element to some degree. It's not like, it's almost like cosmic, it's where
It's just an element.
I know, but it's like it's a very magical element. Like there,
It's
for
it's
example,
one
well,
element has to
here's
have
why. Here's why.
the properties that oxygen does. Some element does, I guess.
But the reason it's so like magical is because it's the number one thing we need to live, and everything in our environment, like trees, for
Well, that's
example, even
just
the oceans, give it to us.
now you're
So
just being biased.
what do you? What else? I mean, it's
You're
true
saying
though. I mean,
oxygen is
what else?
special because it's special to you. I mean, yeah,
Well, sure,
but
carbon is
that's not
important, hydrogen is
objective.
important, all these other elements are important, but at the same time, I mean, oxygen is definitely number one. I mean, you know, that's a
I mean,
fact. I mean,
we can't exist without
math.
dozens of other elements, though.
Yeah, but oxygen, if we were to prioritize, oxygen would be number one.
Well, I mean,
It's math. I mean, it's,
in terms of time scale of how quickly you would die, I
yeah.
it's maybe I think if you removed all of any element in you except like maybe lead, you die, right? So I don't think oxygen actually like oxygen in the environment, sure, but um I think I don't know, we're just kind of talking about nothing at this point, and I'm actually supposed to go eat, so I think I'll let you go.
Well, good chatting with you, man. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.